Welcome to the Student Success Podcast. I'm Al Solano, founder of the Continuous Learning Institute, or CLI, a higher education online resource focused on providing community college and open access university educators with practical information on how to get results at their campus. As a resource within CLI, the Student Success Podcast is focused on just that, the challenges, opportunities, failures, and successes of practices intended to improve student success and equity. The goal is to leave you with thought-provoking ideas, nuts and bolts information, and or lessons learned from the field so you can consider how you might apply them to your institutional context. For today's podcast, it's a pleasure to have Professor Lisa Ratchford. Lisa is Professor of Sociology and Women's Studies and the Chair of the Sociology and Social Science Department at Diablo Valley College in California. She completed her undergraduate education in sociology at UCLA and her graduate studies at UC Berkeley. She has over 20 years teaching experience at the community college and university levels. She currently serves as the co-coordinator of the Emoja program, a learning community that serves African American and other historically underrepresented students. She's also been an academic senate lead, an original organizer of the Diablo Valley College Racial Justice Task Force, and a co-lead of the Ethnic Studies Work Group and district-wide advisory council working on the development of the Ethnic Studies program. She also coordinates the Nexus Professional Development Program, which is a year-long onboarding program for new faculty. Her role as the Nexus coordinator is to bring an equity focus to the training program and to design workshops that help faculty increase their knowledge of equity-minded practices and that engage faculty in important conversations about pedagogy, instructional techniques, student services, and their relationship to student success. So welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Al. It is quite a pleasure to be here, and I am just very thrilled that you asked me to join. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for making it. I like to start the podcast with guests asking them about something about themselves beyond their work. Perhaps a hobby, any kind of talents that they'd like to share. Would you like to share anything, Lisa?
Wow, I have come to realize over the last year that I'm not as exciting as I thought I was, but I have to admit, one hobby or something that I have actually always enjoyed doing and have started taking more seriously, I should say, as a passion, is cooking. I've always loved to cook for my family in particular. And so over the last year, I have been looking for old family recipes. So my mom's old recipes, my grandmother's old recipes, my great-grandmother's recipes. And I found recipes up to about 4 to 5 generations back. I've been looking at those recipes, preparing them, putting my own spin on them, documenting them. And so me and my mom have started a really fun mother-daughter project that we are creating a family cookbook for the Williams women. That is my mom's maiden name. And so the Williams Women's Family Cookbook, about 4 or 5 wonderful generations worth of meals. So that's been a fun hobby and project that I've been taking on over the last year.
Wow, up to 4 generations. That's beautiful. So do you have, if you don't mind sharing, a dish or two that's your favorite?
Uh-huh. I would have to say there are 2 in particular. I'm now pretty much a vegetarian, but haven't always been. And so one of my favorite things was my mom's chicken and dumplings. Amazing chicken and dumplings recipe. So as we are working on that one, it is very, very difficult for me because I can't enjoy it or eat it. So it's like I'm trying to taste the sauce, but I'm not supposed to be eating the chicken, right? But that will always be one of my favorites. And the other one is my grandmother, who says she got this recipe from her mom. It is a fried corn recipe that starts with taking the corn right off the stalk and taking it off and different spices and creams. And it's just It's delicious. So I would have to say right now, of the foods that I can actually eat, because many of those 3 generation back foods I can't eat anymore, it would have to be Big Mama's fried corn.
Oh, I'm getting hungry already. So since you've gone back these generations, are they all in California, or we're looking at generations that were family that lived in other states?
Yeah, yes. My family is from deep south. So my mom actually came to California with her mom when she was around, my mom was about 18. So she's from Mississippi. And all of my family is in Mississippi and Tennessee. And my dad's side of the family is in Alabama. So we actually do have quite a bit of, I've got a lot of Southern roots in me, but I'm very California girl. There's nothing really Southern about me at all until we start talking about the food. Then I know where it came from, and a lot of the hospitality too. So, but yeah, my family roots are in the South. So, and I'm kind of hoping that as you know, my mom and I work on this cookbook, that I can learn a little bit more about that history. I'm already learning things from talking to her, not just about food, but just about, about spirituality, about the role that food played. I learned that, my great grandfather was a community farmer. And I was like, what was a community farmer? And my mom said it like it was no big thing. And she was like, well, he had a plot of land and he would have all of these crops, and he would, after harvesting them, he would have basically a place where folks could come and they could get food. He fed, and I was like, he fed the community. I'm just like, Mom, this is huge. She was just kind of like, for her, that was just what folks did back then. You were a sharecropper, and with the crops that you harvested, you shared those with others that couldn't make ends meet. And so it was just another wonderful lesson to learn about what life was like for my family.
So many years ago, this is a long time ago, when I worked in K-12, I used to travel the country. And one of the places I used to love to go to is Atlanta. I worked with a couple of districts there. I went to go eat at a restaurant. The picture of the salmon looked really good, but it said it's served with grits. The waitress came over and I said, well, I like to get the salmon, and I have a Latino background. So I was like, I need to have it with rice. I said, can I have it with rice, please? And she said, oh, no, honey, you are not having it with rice. You're having it with grits. And so I looked at her right in the eyes and I said, yes, ma'am. And I was like, I was not going to argue with her. She knew what she was talking about. And sure enough, she brought it out, and oh my gosh, it was so delicious. I had salmon with grits, and I was so grateful that she basically ordered, there's no way that you're going to have rice with it. Anyway, that's my Southern story.
anything with grits. But yeah, shrimp and grits, that's going to be in the recipe book too. Love it. Gumbo, all that. I'm just like, don't get me started now. Don't get me started.
So you're putting together these recipes, and I would love to learn about the recipe known as Nexus. What are the ingredients to help onboard faculty at your institution? Can you please share those ingredients?
Nexus has probably been one of the most rewarding things that I've done at DVC that's focused on the work that I do outside of the classroom. When I think about kind of what are the ingredients for a program that onboards faculty, I would say there are a few. It has to be intentional, and it has to be intentionally equity focused. The training itself has to kind of start with equity as the foundation. It can't be a training program that's designed to do a whole bunch of things, and then somewhere in there we talk about equity. Now, equity has to be the foundation, and then everything that you do supports that goal. It has to be reflection based. I think oftentimes when we think about an onboarding program or a training program, we think that, okay, people are going to come and you're going to teach them X, Y, and Z, this strategy, this practice, this practice. And then they're going to just take that and leave and apply it. And there's a little bit of that goes on. But really, it's about reflecting on your practice. So thinking about everything that you do and then asking yourself why and how did it work and why did it work or why didn't it work and what can I do better? And not only is that something that we're trying to teach faculty, that it's a constant process of reflection and changing, but that's also something that we do as the coordinators as well. We have to reflect on that workshop we just did, what worked, what didn't work. So it's a constant process of reflection. Another ingredient is the training has to be solution oriented. So really, when we think about onboarding faculty, we have to be asking ourselves, what are the goals of the program? What issues are we trying to resolve as a college, for example? What are our goals and our mission as a college? And how do we want this onboarding to speak to that? So, for example, every college has an Ed Master Plan. Make sure you've read your Ed Master Plan and know exactly how your onboarding and how your training is speaking to that Ed Master Plan. Know something about the historical context of the college and what's been missing in the past from onboarding programs and how faculty, what faculty have been saying that they need or have been missing. How is the program speaking to that? An onboarding program has to see the connections between instruction and student services. And oftentimes, I think when we think about a faculty program, we think that it's going to be all about pedagogy, just, teaching and learning and strategies in the classroom. And that's a part of it. But everything that we do in the classroom is about student success. And student success is about more than just the academic stuff, that we're doing. Our students can't be successful if they don't know about the resources that are available to them, if they don't have access to tutoring or counselors or food or know where to get an emergency grant. So it's important for us as faculty to also be very familiar with all of the resources that are available to students and to embed them into our instruction. And there's lots of different ways that we try to help our faculty do that. But to kind of seamlessly illustrate that as a part of onboarding, faculty have to see the work that they do in the classroom as being highly connected to the bigger work of the college that leads to student success as well. And I would probably say the other ingredient is nimbleness. The training you offer has to be subject to change quickly and on the spot. And we learned that last year in particular, with so many things taking place in the world, everything from, health crisis to social justice movements to the threats against our democracy. And we know that all of this is happening while we're trying to work, while we're trying to teach our students, but while our students are also trying to grapple with this. So what are the strategies and the techniques and the tools that we have to help our students through this, but also to help our faculty know how to facilitate these conversations and how to continue to do this work in the midst of everything that's going on. So that means you need a program that can't just stick to these are the workshops that we offer, boom, 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 because sometimes it's like, okay, no, we need a workshop where we're going to help faculty understand how to respond to these things that are happening in the classroom as a result of something that happened 2 weeks ago. And it doesn't always have to be training that's really specific to that event, but it should be something that you design that can help you speak to how do we deal with crises moments. When they happen, you've got that in place so that you can, have that as a part of your training. That's what I would say are the ingredients. As you can see, there's quite a few. This is more similar to my German chocolate cake recipe, which has about 10 or 15 different steps. You got to mix and scoop and whisk and separate and shake and bake, and it takes forever to make the cake. In the end, it's the best thing ever when you take the time.
So thank you for explaining the ingredients. So you were just mentioning the techniques, putting all the ingredients together. So can you explain that next? I'm a faculty member. I'm new. How does this start with some kind of orientation? And there's a series of workshops, and is there a mentor? How are the ingredients put together?
Yeah, great. Thank you. The Nexus program is, I guess if we have to put it in kind of in its most, I don't know, just kind of like terms to make it very clear what the program is, it's considered to be the professional development obligation for all new faculty. And that is 50 hours of professional development in your first year. And then in your second year, faculty are expected to do 40 hours. And then in your third year, I believe it's 30 hours or something. But in that first year, all 50 hours of your professional development are completed through your participation in the Nexus program. And it starts the minute you are hired. Your co-coordinators, and I am one of the coordinators of the Nexus program. Patrick Leung, who is an English professor, also works with me as the coordinator of Nexus. So it begins really with us reaching out to the new faculty. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Let us tell you a little bit about the Nexus program, tell you a little bit about DVC. Really what we try to establish from the very beginning is something that we also try to help our new faculty establish in their classrooms, which is a sense of belonging. How do we ensure that our faculty are coming into the program and feeling immediately connected? This was really important to us this year because we knew that our faculty weren't going to have an opportunity to be on campus, to meet, to come together, to have that first, gathering where we all have breakfast together, all the things that we've always taken for granted as part of the process of getting to know one another. We couldn't do that in the same way this year. And so there are some things that I'll be talking about as part of the program that we couldn't necessarily do this year, but hoping that very soon we'll be able to bring those aspects back. When our faculty first start the Nexus program, there's really three big pieces before the workshops begin. The first is they are partnered with a faculty mentor. So every new faculty gets a mentor. Their mentor is someone that's assigned to them through their department. So as coordinators, we don't necessarily go out and get the mentors, but we connect with every department chair or division dean, and we say, hey, looks like you have new faculty. Here they are. Could you please assign each faculty person a mentor? We have had several senior faculty who have served as mentors for their departments for several years. So that's been really cool to kind of have this kind of consistent group of mentors who really understand the program and who really know how to work with new faculty. But we're always open to new folks coming in. You don't have to be tenured to be a mentor, but we oftentimes stress that, faculty who have kind of been around for a minute, make good mentors. So the first thing we do is we encourage that connection right away, and we ask the mentors to reach out to the new faculty as well to create that sense of belonging. Our mentors attend each workshop. So if we have, for example, 25 new faculty, each one has a mentor. So at every workshop, we would have 50 faculty. The new faculty as well as the mentor. And we'll talk a little later about why that's really an important part of the Nexus program, because we have so many opportunities for small group discussions and conversations where having as much knowledge in the room is really beneficial. In addition to the mentoring, we also offer a district bus tour. And the bus tour is one of the first opportunities that the new faculty have to all come together and meet. And historically, the bus tour has been that the new faculty go to all of the campuses in the district, so all the sister campuses. So they go to DBC, and they take a trip to LMC and to CCC, and then they also visit the DBC San Ramon campus. So traditionally, it's just been just a tour of the campuses. Well, 2 years ago, we decided maybe we could expand the idea of the bus tour. And the bus tour is an all-day thing, so it's about 8 hours. It's really now been transformed into a tour that connects new faculty to the community and not necessarily just to the colleges in the area. The plan then is to not only have them visit a couple of, DVC and, maybe one other college in the district, but to visit some of the community centers in the area that serve minoritized student populations. For example, we have a Rainbow Community Center in Concord. We do a lot of work with the Rainbow community, focuses a lot on working with our LGBTQ students, for example. Their presence is so important in the community and on campus that we would want to introduce faculty to community centers such as that, to a local food bank, for example, maybe to the historical society in the area, to a local high school. And then in the day by patronizing a local restaurant that's been longstanding in the community. Really, this shift was because we recognized that many of the faculty that are new are also new to the area. So they're coming from out of state or they're coming from Southern California. They don't necessarily know the area that they're serving, the community that they're serving. So the bus tour has kind of shifted from just going to the colleges to really being about onboarding new faculty to the community at large. And so that's been really beneficial. And then the third part is the district orientation. And the district orientation is not something that the Nexus coordinators put on. This is an orientation that the district does. So it's much more kind of formalized. It's around, how you get your ergonomic workstation set up and I guess Union's version of the evaluation process, which is sometimes a little different from the Nexus version of the evaluation process. Payroll, just all of the different things that new faculty are going to need to know, that I'm very fortunate to say that as your Nexus coordinators, we don't have to do that stuff. So it'll be like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine. It would be like the whole year where we have to talk about that kind of stuff. They get that stuff out of the way at the district orientation. And then we move into our workshops, which actually starts with a 2-day orientation and then our specialized workshops after that, which we can talk more about. But that's really kind of the first steps before Nexus starts is the bus tour, the orientation, and the connection to their faculty mentors.
I love what you said about modeling this sense of belonging and community, which is what students need, and you're providing that for faculty. That's beautiful. The second piece, I think, is I love how it evolved from this bus tour of just visiting campuses, sister campuses, to really engaging them, onboarding them to the community, because so many faculty actually don't end up teaching in that. They don't live in the area that they teach in, right?
Yeah.
Or as you said, they're brand new to the area. So they have a better sense of who are we serving exactly? What's our community? What's the dynamic? I think and then letting the district handle all that nuts and bolts HR stuff, right? Now that you gave us some ingredients, you told us how this beautiful cake is coming together. Give us a taste now. What some of these specialized workshops, also because I'm aware of some of the incidences that have happened at DVC, how the student voice has informed how this dish should taste like. So can you unpack that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I would just like to say, Al, you were really you are just really finessing this whole hobby recipe cook thing. It is just a beautiful thing. I love it.
You're too kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Oftentimes I say I feel like we have the students to thank for many of the changes that are occurring on our campus right now. And that includes many of the changes that are occurring in Nexus. In, I believe it was 2018, spring of 2018, DVC was experiencing a number of incidences of racial graffiti on campus. And much of that graffiti was targeted towards students of color, clearly, but African-American students in particular. And it happened a number of times. Sometimes the students knew, and we were finding that there were times when the students didn't know. But once the students got word of it and started to sense kind of what that meant about the climate of the college, their sense of safety, they brought it to the forefront of the college. And African-American students on campus, particularly students who are a part of the Emoji program, which is the program that I am one of the co-coordinators for, decided to stage a walkout. In the middle of the day, they took to the quad area and had a rally. It was just it was beautiful. I mean, the reason that it had to be done, of course, was not, but just to see students coming together, mobilizing, and the way they pulled together was just a beautiful thing. One of the things that came out of that walkout was a list of student demands. So the students said, we don't want to just walk out. We actually want to, say what we want in order to make this campus a better place for students of color. And they had a number of demands. One of them included they wanted a robust ethnic studies program. So we've been working on the design of ethnic studies. And the thing about it is, we've been trying to do that for years at DVC, and so we were like, thank goodness for student voice, because finally it's like the message got, started to sink in. So that's moving forward. But one of the things that the students asked for was professional development. And they wanted professional development that was centered around racial equity and social justice. It's really interesting because the students were like, we want all faculty to be required to have to do some kind of racial, sensitivity training, racial justice training. Well, of course, I'm sure you knew the minute the faculty heard faculty required, it was like, we were like, oh boy, how are we going to do this? Because how are we going to do this, right? We said, well, you know what? We have an onboarding program for our new faculty. And it may be hard for us to get through to all of the senior faculty who are resistant to some of the changes that are taking place. But this new group of faculty that are coming in are actually quite open and receptive. And we think they actually want to learn and want to engage. So maybe we should start thinking about how to integrate that call into our faculty onboarding. The administration heard that and decided to bring on a second coordinator to the Nexus program. The program originally had just one coordinator, and the focus of Nexus was never really about equity. It was just about, I went through the program myself. So really the focus of Nexus in the past was to kind of orient new faculty to the college by talking to them about different committees, different services for students. There wasn't much of a focus on pedagogy or things like that. So it was a good program. It just wasn't an equity focused program. I was asked or hired to come on as the co-coordinator to work on kind of giving this equity and particularly racial equity focus to Nexus. So as we've started to redesign it, really we wanted the focus and the goal of the program to be how do we kind of build and cultivate equity-minded practitioners. What does that look like? What will those workshops look like? How will the existing design of Nexus have to be transformed in order for that to occur? Really, the last couple of years for us have been about looking at the program and what it does and seeing what needs to be changed, what needs to be tweaked, and what needs to be completely redeveloped. And there were a lot of things that needed to be developed because they did not exist. As our new faculty come on board, some of the other kind of parts that we mix together start with a 2-day orientation at the very beginning of this semester. So at the start of the semester, we have something called Flex Week. It's just professional development week. Every faculty, new or senior, has to go through Flex Week and get some professional development in. So we use those 2 days for our Nexus orientation. I believe we do 4 or 5 hour days. So it's pretty intensive, that first week of orientation for our faculty. But it's during that time that we really help them think about how to build and create that class environment that's really going to set the pace and the tone for the entire year. Not only the entire year for what we're going to be doing in Nexus, but hopefully the entire year for what they're going to be doing in their classrooms. So it's during that time that we start doing a lot of icebreakers, for example, getting to know the faculty, but also modeling how they can do that in their classrooms. So we are always thinking about how do the practices that we do in Nexus help faculty think about how to utilize those practices in their classrooms as well. So we're always trying to model by doing. We, give opportunities once again to start that reflection process very early on. So one of the things we do is we have our faculty do a word cloud. It's like the Why I Teach word cloud. And at the very beginning, we just get to talk about why we're here, why we teach. We build that word cloud. We have a Canvas page for our Nexus faculty. So we put that word cloud on that page and we say, if ever you forget, when you have those days and you're just like, why am I doing this again? Go back. That word cloud is saying things like, because I want to empower, I want to inspire, excite, because I want to increase equity, because I want to mentor. It's just always very inspiring to hear what has brought these new faculty, not only to DBC, but to the profession. We also, in that first orientation or those 2 days of orientation, we spent a lot of time talking about the kind of climate that we want to build for our students. We spent a lot of time talking about belonging and what belonging and mattering feels like for students. We talk about some of the research around that. And then we start just looking at real tangible things that faculty can do. So we talk about, like the warm classroom climate and what is that? What does a warm syllabus feel like? And we look at copies of syllabi, and we talk about, something that I started doing in one of my classes that I shared once is I asked my students how the syllabus made them feel. And it was really something that I just kind of did spontaneously one day, because you ask the students, okay, you have any questions about the syllabus? And it's like, chirp, 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 the crickets go off. And so I'm just like, how does the syllabus make you feel? And it was just like quiet. Everybody was like, what do you mean? How does the syllabus make us feel? But then we really started unpacking it. And I learned a lot about how the syllabus sets the tone and how it makes students feel. I mean, that first round of that syllabus, before I asked that question, the students were like, well, I have to admit, it makes me feel a little anxious because I don't know if I'm going to be able to write a 10-page paper, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to meet these deadlines because they seem so strict and I work or I have a family, It was a process for me of reflection and rebuilding and rewriting to get that syllabus to become one where students say, you know what, this syllabus makes me feel like I'm going to be supported. This syllabus makes me feel like there are resources out there for me if I get stuck. We talk about things like that. How do we create that warm syllabus, that sense of belonging? How do we create a syllabus that is equitable? So we talk about equitizing the syllabus and different strategies. I believe, Al, we even reference a couple of your handouts because I know you put some stuff out there about that as well. So we give, real examples, tangible things that faculty can do. A statement of diversity, statement of inclusion. We give them examples that they can just integrate right into their syllabus. But once again, really helping them to understand that these are just samples, guidelines, but it's really going to be up to you to continue to reflect on that process throughout the semester until it feels right for you, until it feels authentic. Because I can't give you a strategy and just say, well, this is how I do it. Just pop it on your syllabus like that and it'll work for you. You might be like, I don't know, this just doesn't feel right for me, but for me, it might be perfect. Those first 2 days for us, I think, are probably two of my favorite, even though I like a lot of our workshops. I think those first 2 days are some of my favorite because we just kind of really lay it all out on the table about what our concerns are about teaching, what our hopes are for what that classroom experience can feel like, and then just kind of trying to really develop some practical strategies and to support one another in how we do that. And I have to admit, at the end of every Nexus year, the faculty probably tell us that was probably some of the most beneficial stuff that we did in Nexus was to really kind of highlight the importance of creating that sense of belonging, mattering, and inclusion in the classroom. Because once you create that dynamic of trust, of safe, open space, it can change everything that you do the entire, semester. And so it's always been really, beneficial for us to hear that those first workshops are highly appreciated. But after that, we really start delving into, like I said, some of kind of like the nitty gritty stuff. And there's a lot. I mean, I think we have a number of workshops and could probably continue to add more, which we will. We actually start with a workshop called The Students We Serve. That workshop is pretty much designed to help new faculty know something about who the DDC student body is. So everything from, demographics of students, but also it's our opportunity to really front load the equity aspect of our training. And so we also bring out student success data and other key indicators, persistence and things that are disaggregated by race so that our faculty are able to see college-wide what some of these disparities look like in success in face-to-face learning and in online learning, campus-wide, but also we look at data within different divisions or interest areas as well. That workshop is always it's one that has lots of questions usually, because I think most folks are like, are you serious? It's almost like they knew there were equity gaps, but I don't think they really knew that there were equity gaps that look like some of the things that we see, especially some of the disparities in online learning and success by racial group. So it's a good starting point for having conversations about equity, but also really setting the tone for what our training is about, why we put equity at the center, why we are trying to make sure that faculty are very equity minded in their teaching and in their approach, because this is what we're dealing with. This is the reality. This is what we've got. So now how do we address this? And so I think that really helps for setting the tone, if you will, by really kind of front loading that discussion about equity. We talk about what equity is, what equity is not. And so once again, I think a good starting point We also have another workshop that we do very early on, which focuses on high impact teaching strategies. And so from the very start, we try to start thinking about how data should inform all of our decisions, whether it's as a campus or whether it's within our classrooms. What do we know about different practices and the practices that seem to be effective in working with different student groups? The high impact teaching strategies is also another workshop that goes over very well. We talk about George Kuh's research on high impact teaching practices. We look at we look at all the practices, but then we look at some of the data. Then we actually start applying it in two ways. We look at how these practices are being used on campus. We talk about learning communities. We talk about the service learning program that we don't have right now, but that we need to be developing, but that has little kind of seeds and breadcrumbs dropped on different parts of the campus in the form of community engagement opportunities for students. So we talk about what's happening, what exists on our college campus already that kind of models these high impact teaching strategies and practices for our students. And then, of course, we brainstorm ways that we can start building these in our classes as well, collaborative projects and opportunities for students to engage and work with faculty. So yeah, that's another one. I'm going to see if you have any questions that you want to ask or follow up on, because I do have a few more workshops that I could talk about that start focusing a little more on some of the kind of heavy topics that I think we've had to deal with in order to kind of move this equity mission forward.
Yes, I think Diablo Valley College has a lot going for it. Last year, I know there was a lot of planning around what has become these Pedagogy Inquiry and Action Teams. DVC has done a great job to plan and implement guided pathways. And when they created their meta majors, which are called interest areas or areas of interest at your college, I always tell colleges, when you create them, that's nice, but what are you doing with them? How is it actually changing the student experience? And what DVC decided to do initially was we're going to create these pedagogy inquiry and action teams per interest area. And they began, and by the way, thank you for mentioning that you used the resources in one of your workshops. One of the other resources that they use as they form these teams was an inquiry and action process so they can look at data. And they're coming up with, boy, I tell you, just amazing strategies, and they're creating these communities of practice. And so I see Nexus is all of this wonderful onboarding, and now they'll have an opportunity to work with these pedagogy inquiry and action teams. So I just want to give the college a lot of kudos for putting that together. We know Dr. Mark Akiyama has been instrumental in shepherding all this, and then Ian and Chris are doing a fabulous job with that. I do want to, if you could unpack maybe one or two more workshops as we wrap up, can you go ahead and explain that?
Yeah. And if I could just kind of piggyback on the pedagogy inquiry teams, really excited about the formation of those. And once again, the nimbleness of Nexus. As soon as that developed, we found a way to create a space for the pedagogy inquiry teams to come into a Nexus workshop and to present. And they did a really, nice presentation talking a little bit about some of the work that's being done in STEM to create a culturally relevant curriculum for students. And so that's great because we have a lot of new faculty who were in STEM. So that kind of, got some of the energy flowing in that sense. We also had some faculty that participated in one of the USC Pedagogy Institutes as well. And so we also had them do some presentations around what they had learned in those workshops as well. Really, that kind of seamless transition from Nexus year one into the pedagogy inquiry teams and the communities of practice is something that we're really trying to kind of seamlessly create in this. Okay, you're like the first to know this, Al. This is still top secret, but we're trying to make Nexus not just a 1-year experience. We're trying to make Nexus a 3-year experience. So, of course, in the first year, Nexus is it's that heavy 50 hours that they have to do. But in year 2, now it's a couple of workshops, maybe one in the fall and one in the spring, that's really designed for what we think our second year faculty want to know. They're not new, but they're not tenured yet, and so they still have a lot of questions. This is the perfect time to get them moving in or transitioning into the next step, which is join an inquiry team and, start developing your kind of equity practices through that. And then hopefully again in a year 3, bringing that third, year folks back for a workshop in the fall, a workshop in the spring that is very oriented around, okay, what can equity work look like at this stage in your career? You've pretty much got tenured now. You're probably now stepping on to some committees like curriculum committee, student learning outcome committees, maybe some governance work. So what does equity work look like at this level now that you're kind of stepping it up a little bit in terms of the work that you're doing on campus? So yeah, that's
It's okay. I think only 3 people listen to the podcast. So we're good.
Yeah.
I'm often asked, hey, Al, how, we talk a lot about change and guided pathways, and we got to apply an equity lens. I wholeheartedly believe in that. To be quite honest, I'm getting a little bit of fatigue about that because I tell them all the time, just do the work. Stop talking about it. Just do the work, because equity is nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends. Look what happened at your campus, right? And look how students took action, and the strategies that you're doing there may be slightly different from what another campus with their culture, with their demographics. As I always say, you apply an equity lens by actually doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's DVC. They put these pedagogy inquiry teams together, and they're looking at the data. They're actually doing the work, and they're going to be implementing culture responsive teaching practices. And even that is nuanced. How do you do that? There is no lesson plan for that. How do you onboard students with an equity lens? Again, that's highly nuanced. But colleges spend so much time asking the question, well, how do you apply an equity lens? Or let's apply an equity lens, but here you are actually doing the work. I don't know. Am I just getting on my soapbox, or do you agree, disagree? What's your thoughts on it?
No, I totally agree. I think that we are in a very complex position right now at DVC, because we are definitely doing the work and in the work, but we are definitely still in the conversations about, are we really doing the work the right way? And are we really moving the needle on equity by doing it this way? So it's an exciting place to be right now, because there's just so much that's taking place, but we're still having to talk the talk as well, but we are walking the walk, I think, as far as doing equity work. And I agree. And it's something that as we, work with new faculty, that we're trying to do exactly what you're saying, which is this work of equity isn't something that we need to be like talking about it as if it can only happen in certain places. On this committee or at this time or with this group. It's in everything that we do. So, as one of our, additional workshops that we do towards the end, as a matter of fact, it's our April workshop, it's called Getting Involved. And the Getting Involved workshop is, we're basically telling instructors, okay, at some point, we're going to kind of like push you out there a little bit and start asking you to think about ways that you can, work on different committees or whatever across campus. And one thing that, we really try to press is how equity work is just, it's everywhere, and we're all doing it. So I'm like, when you are asked to do a Title V rewrite for a course, at that time, you're doing equity work because you're looking over that course and you're saying, how are we, are we telling all the stories that need to be told? What's the perspective that we're coming from? Has the curriculum that we set up so far been effective? You have an opportunity to look at data right there and see who's benefiting from this and who is not, and how can we change? Just in the work of rewriting a course, there's powerful equity work that's being done at that moment. If you're thinking about it like that and not just thinking of it as, oh, I got to do a Title V rewrite and I just want to try to get it done. I'm like, no, this is an opportunity for equity work to evolve. When we're doing our SLOs, our student learning outcomes, which everybody rolls their eyes at, nobody wants to do it. They think it's a drag. We're measuring student success in our classes based on our curriculum, based on the assignments that we are creating, based on the test questions that we are asking. That's a time when we're doing equity work. So when you have to do SLOs, when you join the SLO committee or whatever it might be, these are opportunities to do that work as you're talking about. And so really another lesson that we try to drive home in Nexus, that this work is being practiced in a number of places, and we don't want to try to compartmentalize equity work or silo equity work, because it's happening every day on campus. And we really want it to be much more centralized so that folks see that it's a big part of everything that we're doing on campus.
That's right. And when you do the work, those conversations become richer because you're not talking about what if or what if we did it that way. When you're actually building the plane while you're flying it, you have that much more information to really see how do we apply an equity lens. Because once you actually do the work and people start to see successful action, in other words, getting things done, it really does give rise to improved attitudes, beliefs, and knowledge. Mm-hmm. I've been saying this for years. People's attitudes, beliefs, and knowledge, it just really changes through the work. And that's how you also create a healthier culture, organizational culture. So thank you for sharing. As we wrap up, Lisa, I was wondering, I'm sure there's a lot of cooks out there who are listening to you and like, oh my gosh, this is a tasty, tasty dish. From one cook to another, what advice would you give them? You have ingredients, you have ways of putting it together, but what are some of those potential pitfalls? What are things that what's the 411 you would give to someone who's interested in putting this together at their campus? Or maybe they already have some kind of onboarding, but they listen to this and want to enhance or strengthen what they have. Do they cook a little something small and build from there? Do they start with the big dish? So as we wrap up, what advice would you give a fellow cook?
I would start, I guess, by going back to the initial ingredients. And I would say start with your ingredients. Start with a very clear understanding of what your mission and your goal of your onboarding program is. And again, be very critical about how you want to make sure that equity is the foundation of that. Start with understanding what the goals of your college are, reading your Ed Master Plan, just to make sure that the work that you're doing coincides with the direction and the goals of the college. Another thing that I would say is an onboarding program, whether you have one already or whether you were building one, isn't something that only a couple of people do. So I feel like in the role as coordinator, I do a lot of facilitating, a lot of trying to find connections on campus. It's kind of like a web. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, what can we learn, or what can new faculty learn from this group, or from what these folks are doing? Or how can we piece together this and this to create a really cool workshop about this? So every single workshop is a collaboration of many voices and many people. We work with counselors, we work with deans, we work with different student service programs, we work with all of the key committees on campus, distance learning committee, academic senate, curriculum. What's really wonderful is that when we call on these folks, they're excited. They're like, oh, cool, this is my, month to go to Nexus. All right, so it's like, okay, we must be doing something right in that sense. I think folks like the fact that the onboarding is a collaboration of the work that's being done on campus, but it also brings voice to all of these other groups on campus as well. So, folks love having this opportunity for, new faculty to learn about the learning communities, or for new faculty to learn about the food pantry on campus, or something like this. So we see it as a collaboration. They see it as an opportunity for new faculty to be able to engage, or new faculty just love the information. So it's a win-win. So I would definitely say start with pulling together all of your partners in the process that are really going to help you move it forward. I would also say research what other colleges are doing. So, like here at DVC, we have our model that has been kind of reworked over time. This has been in existence for a while. We're just really kind of transforming it, but we were starting, with something. Look at what maybe your campus has done in the past, and maybe it just kind of fell off the radar. Or maybe they're doing something that's not officially onboarding, but you can learn from it. You can say, it looks like we've got a couple of professional development things that are going on campus here and here. What happens if we kind of pull it together and make a series of workshops for new faculty? And the other aspect would be assessment. So assessing what you've done over the year for your program. And so I know sometimes that can be a little scary. You don't always want to hear what people have to say if it's something negative, but there's always learning opportunities in discovering what was beneficial and what was not so beneficial in your program. Sometimes something that we really wanted to spend a lot of time on, faculty may have thought we spent too much time on. And then there are other things that we thought we could cover in 10 or 15 minutes. And we could really tell by the level of engagement that maybe this is something that faculty needed to spend a little bit more time on. So just kind of gauging faculty needs as well as their experiences in the program. We've had a year of doing this all virtually. So this whole year for us, it was an all virtual Nexus. So yeah, evaluating that one's going to be a little scary, but I think overall we were able to still capture the essence of what Nexus is and to create a sense of community, even though we were online doing it this year.
Thank you. A few years ago, Cal State LA, their College of Education, reached out to me because there was a need in the community. What they saw was that the faculty that were teaching dual enrollment in the high schools needed some help. We developed a course on helping faculty teach dual enrollment at the high schools that has been very successful. It's been offered through the university's extension in order for it to be more affordable. Right before COVID, they reached out to me because they saw a need. Colleges were telling them, look, we really need something to help us with effective teaching and classroom practices. So I put together a small team and we created this wonderful online course. And I want to plug it because you came in at the tail end of it to help review it. And we really appreciate your feedback. And this is a course on effective teaching and classroom practices that will be offered through the extension, if not this summer of 2021, but the fall. I want to make sure to mention that because you were involved and really want to thank you for helping to make it that much better.
Yeah. That was a wonderful opportunity to collaborate on this project. Really a course that I think is going to be so helpful and useful to community college instructors, really kind of focusing on the theory behind teaching adult learners. And I think that is so important as new faculty start teaching. I don't think folks realize how little help with actually teaching and learning how to teach new faculty get before they actually start this job. You know a lot about your discipline in your field, but don't always have a whole lot of background about teaching and what that experience is like. Discussions about theory around teaching, about mindset, about equity and what equity is, and how that is a critical part of the work that we do. We have a focus on the creation of a syllabus and how to design a syllabus, but also how to design an instructional plan. So how do you actually take, a week in a syllabus and actually turn it into a week or 2 weeks of your course? There are opportunities for discussion and engagement around a number of issues. But most importantly, there's a real focus on student engagement that is a part of that course. How do we engage students in a classroom, and particularly in an online classroom environment? What does that look like? A big challenge, I think, for many faculty, even seasoned faculty, this year in particular, teaching online. But we've, developed some really amazing strategies and see this class as an opportunity to really help new faculty hone those skills. Pretty excited to be included in that. It was just a great opportunity. Wonderful course.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining the Student Success podcast. Again, it says student success, right? All of this is working toward student success, which of course encompasses equity. We learned so much about this really meaningful onboarding program. Thank you for telling us the ingredients, how to put it together, the cook to cook 411. Really appreciate always. I've just had the privilege of I've interviewed everyone from a college president to a researcher, and then I've had your second faculty. Just all these wonderful perspectives. We're all really part of the same team. Faculty and administrators. We're all trying to work toward increasing student success. So thank you so much for your input. Thank you so much for participating in the Student Success podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was funner than I couldn't imagine it have been more fun than it actually was. But but this was great. Having an opportunity to talk about work that you love is always quite rewarding. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Student Success podcast. Each episode has show notes, which include helpful links and necessary follow-up information to help you get results. Please consider subscribing to the Continuous Learning Institute website. There are no advertisements. It's simply updates about articles, tools, resources, podcasts, etc., all tailored for you, the practitioner. Thank you.